Have you ever showed up to a spiritual gathering and suddenly feel completely out of place? Like you showed up pretty open-minded. It's like you weren't closed, but the way that spirituality was being expressed felt stylized or coded, or there was a particular aesthetic that was being put on the spirituality. And so as a result, it kind of felt like maybe, this example of going to a fine dining restaurant, but wearing pajamas. It's like, yeah, I could totally go to a fine dining restaurant in pajamas. I just wouldn't often choose to do that unless I was really like priming myself to do that. Or if I had the whole party with me wearing pajamas, I think that would actually be fun too. But just deciding to show up to a fine dining restaurant with pajamas, I wouldn't normally choose that and I wouldn't feel comfortable. And so that's just an analogy that reflects this thing that happens with spirituality. It's not spirituality that causes people to feel uncomfortable. It's how we dress spirituality. It's the wrapping that we put on it that causes discomfort or friction. So one day I was contemplating about the field and I had this spontaneous phrase that just came to me. And that phrase was, the field has no culture. And as I felt into that statement, it felt like profound in some way. And I'm feeling into that. And what I started to realize is that the field has no belief system associated with it. The field is not connected to any lineage. The field does not have any particular aesthetic. None of these things. What the field is it's a relational system that emerges when humans become present with each other. And relational systems, they do not belong to any particular culture. But what they do, what the field does, is it reveals the culture that is present within the space. So when we start to overstructure spirituality and we dress it up with all kinds of language, rituals, music, clothing, hierarchy, ways of being, whatnot, what happens is we start to privilege one culture over another, or we prioritize one way of being over another. And there isn't anything wrong with that. In fact, that's really the being a human being, the excitement, the joy, the celebration of being a human is that we have so many ways of relating with the field, of connecting with the field that have really influenced and informed us in many ways. So there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if our intention is to come together and unify and truly connect to the field, when we focus on the dressings, how we're dressing up the field, it limits our experience of being with the field as a collective. When there is a particular flavor that we are subscribing to, it's going to limit other people's access because other people have different flavors. We don't all like burgers, Some of us don't even eat meat, It's like, right? Like, so how can we invite the vegans in too? Right? If we all want nutrients, and we're saying the only way you can get nutrients here is burgers, then we're going to be limiting a whole population, and they're not going to actually be able to come and be in the field with us to receive that nourishment. And without them in the field, we're missing out on a huge vantage point that could bring us into a deeper relationship to ourselves and each other. So in the field we hold, which is called intention field, we discovered that when we do a ritual and one person is leading that ritual, there's this unconscious thing that happens where that person's culture is sort of like placed on the space in some way. And even if they really do their very best to make it as multicultural and inviting as possible, there's still this sense of this person's own culture being dressed onto the field. And so we started questioning, like, how can we make this more multicultural? Like, how can this ritual be more inclusive in a way that is a better reflection of the field? And what we discovered is that the simple solution was to let the constellation lead the ritual. And so now what it looks like is, instead of one person leading the ritual, it's decentralized. Everyone is calling in whatever it is that they need to feel safe, supported, protected, taken care of, in whatever way that they need in relationship to the field. So now it's no longer about you need to be dressed in this way or look this particular way or believe this particular thing or know this particular thing. No, it's whatever the constellation is needing, whatever culture is in the space is being held and contained by the field, because the field is unconditional, and however you are, however you're showing up, is welcomed and completely acceptable. And here's what's really cool about that. When there's no pressure to conform to a spiritual style, people relax. And when people relax, coherency increases. And when coherency in the space increases, then the field becomes much more clear. And when the field is clear, then we receive reflections and insights and a mirror that's quite useful, that's quite impactful, that's quite empowering. And that's what we're here for. The field has no culture. And it does not erase culture. It makes room for it. And the less we dress it up, the more space we have to be with what's actually happening between us.